Hey guys, what is up? It is the Fast Break Report here, bringing you guys another vlog. So, I want to talk about Luka Doncic, which feels very weird, but I want to talk about Luka Doncic because, well, I feel like his MVP case isn't getting the type of love it deserves. It's very rare that I talk about certain players and agree with the fan base on things, because a lot of times you can talk about a player and people will say, oh, well, this player deserves to be in the MVP conversation even though they have no fucking business being in it. But oftentimes when you talk about players, people in the comment section will tend to say like, oh, this guy deserves to be in the MVP conversation, or this guy deserves to be an all-star or whatever, and they really fucking don't. But in this particular case, I actually tend to agree with Mavericks fans. How Luka Doncic is not in the top 3 for MVP is kind of insane, but at the same token, I understand why he's not. But the thing is, the issues that the Mavericks have had are not things that you can really blame Luka Doncic for. They're not things that he has any control of, because the Dallas Mavericks are currently 8th in the Western Conference. They have a record of 41-29, which is exactly why Luka Doncic doesn't have the case for MVP that I feel like a lot of people think that he should. You know, a lot of people, even Jimmy High Roller, made a video about this actually today, I believe. I watched his video, and he was saying that, you know, in the past couple years, it seems like record doesn't really matter. You know, it seems like the MVP is just like people picking the guy who is like most impactful, which I think makes a lot of sense. I think the MVP award should be named that, the most impactful player award, because that's really what it is. You know, what player impacts winning the most on their team and who has a good record because of it, right? And I feel like that's kind of the way people have been leaning the past couple years. You know, you saw Russell Westbrook in 2017. You know, like, it just seems like every MVP award has its own niche to it, where it's not consistent every year. You know, Russell Westbrook put up a, average a triple-double for an entire season and got Oklahoma City into the playoffs by himself. You know, Jokic had a year where he won MVP as the 6th seed. And we're seeing it more and more. We're seeing it where guys are winning the MVP award without being the number 1 seed. Even this year, Jokic is the front runner to win MVP, and the Denver Nuggets are the 3rd seed in the West. So it's, you know, as time goes on compared to where it was like 10 years ago, where it's like your team basically had to be a top 2 seed in their conference in order to get the MVP award, we're noticing more and more that's no longer the trend, right? It's no longer like your team has to be absolutely fucking dominating the league in order for you to win the MVP award. But the thing is, I feel like there's still some merit to that, because your team does have to be like a contending team. I feel like that's part of the requirement, is like your team has to be eligible to win an NBA championship. At least I think that used to be the requirement. And it seems like that's not the requirement anymore, which is why I don't really understand why more people aren't saying Luka Doncic deserves to be the league MVP, because he's playing absolutely fucking amazing. Then when you include the fact that the Mavericks are the 2nd most injured team this season, and they're still the 8th seed. Like, a lot of people I don't think know that, but the Mavericks have had the 2nd most injuries on their team out of any team in the NBA. I think Maxi Kleber's missed like 37 games. I think Dante Exum has missed like 26 games. Josh Green, I think, has missed like 17. They've had a lot, and I mean a lot, of fucking injuries on their team. So the idea that they're even in the playoffs or like in the playoff picture is, you know, just something that's kind of amazing in itself, because most teams that have that many injuries and guys who sit out that long usually don't end up, they usually don't end up being playoff teams. You know, when you have this many guys that are injured, it's very rare that they end up being a playoff team. But Luka Doncic has managed to backpack this team long enough to get them to the playoffs. Granted, that could still change. I mean, they are the 8th seed right now in the West. Right now, they have a pretty solid hold, I think, on the 8th seed. The Lakers are 38 and 32, which is the 9th seed, and Golden State is currently the 10th seed at 36 and 33. So they've got a pretty snug lead on the 8th seed, but they could move up as far as 7, maybe even 6th. Actually, they could even move up as high as 5, depending on how New Orleans plays. But it's just the idea, like, Dallas has the ability to move up even further. But it's just the idea, like, when you look at the league and just look around it, like, you know, somebody said that, like, when everybody's a superstar, nobody is special anymore. And it's kind of true. You know, like, when you look around the league, it's like, everybody's a fucking superstar. You know, when everybody's super, nobody is, you know, and that's the crazy thing to think about it, because it's like, how good do you actually have to be now to win the MVP award? That's the thing that I've been wondering about this whole thing. It's like, you know, Giannis seems to always be in it. Jokic was the front runner until he got injured. Embiid was the front runner until he got injured. Now it's Jokic, right? Like, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's a guy who I think deserves a little more credit than he gets. You know, OKC is currently the number 1 seed. SGA is now 2nd in MVP voting. But, you know, if you look on Basketball Reference, right now, Nikola Jokic is number 1, SGA is number 2, Giannis is 3, and Luka Doncic is 4. Luka Doncic should arguably be 2nd. He's just been having that crazy of a fucking year. And, you know, I think also, like, Jason Tatum is actually 5th, which is kind of crazy as well. It's just the idea, like, I feel like the MVP tracker should maybe be Jokic, Doncic, Giannis, actually, maybe not even that. Maybe Jokic, Doncic, SGA, Tatum, and then Giannis. It's just like, it's really weird. The whole thing is incredibly fucking weird. But it's just the idea, Luka Doncic has been playing his ass off this year, and it really makes me wonder, like, what are the requirements now? Like, what are the requirements to win league MVP? Clearly, it's not wins, because Jason Tatum would be number 2, if that makes sense, if that made any sense. Like, is it efficiency? Is it PER? You know, like, I feel like PER has a lot to deal with it. Like, player efficiency rating is a big thing. You know, like, Jokic last year, I feel like last year Jokic should have won the MVP. Just to, like, be clear, I think I was pretty vocal about that last year. Like, anytime you shoot 70% true shooting percentage for the entire year and you finish the season as I don't think Denver was the number 1 seed, but as like a top 3 seed in the West, I feel like that deserves a lot of credit, right? Like, that's very hard to do. This year, it was pretty obvious Embiid was the front runner for MVP. It was pretty self-evident that, like, Embiid was going to win it until he got injured. But I feel like last year they kind of just gave it to Embiid. So it's just the idea. I don't really know anymore what the requirements are for league MVP, because there are certain guys that's like they're playing their ass off and they're not even really in the conversation. So, and that just shows like really where the league is going and how much talent the league has in it these days. You know, I think the NBA is in like really, really good hands going into the future, but Luka Doncic is playing at a level that, like, you know, everybody brings up who they think is going to be the face of the league after LeBron leaves. You know, after LeBron leaves, it'll be Curry for a little bit, I think. And then after that, after Curry retires, it's like, who's next? I think it's Luka Doncic. Like, I can't believe I'm saying that, but I think it's Luka Doncic. The only guy capable of catching up to LeBron's scoring record at the moment, there's only 2 guys, Anthony Edwards and Luka Doncic. Luka Doncic is the closest guy to being able to surpass LeBron's scoring record. He already has 11,000 points, and he's been in the NBA for, 5 or 6 years? I mean, Luka Doncic is playing on another fucking level. So, I don't know, man. You know what? It's definitely an interesting conversation to have, but Dallas is one of those teams that also simply, like, they just, I don't know if it's just they're not fun to watch or if they're just a team that, it's weird. Like, somebody brought it up on Jimmy Hirola's video that, like, you know, somehow people already have voter fatigue on Luka Doncic and he hasn't won anything. And I have to kind of agree with that sentiment. You know, for the longest time, including myself, you know, like for the past couple years, everybody's been like, Luka Doncic is winning MVP. Luka Doncic is winning MVP. Luka Doncic is winning MVP. And the expectation is always there, but he never actually wins it. You know, like his teams are always good, but they're also never great. And I think that has a really, really big impact on it as well. But I just simply think with like the amount of injuries that he's had to sustain to his team and still manage to make them a playoff team, I think is something that doesn't get the type of credit that it deserves. So anyway, tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. I'd like to hear your guys' opinions on this because I think it's very interesting. You know, like what do you guys think the criteria is for the MVP? You know, because like I'm at a point now where it's like, okay, well, like for me, the criteria for MVP has always been like, you got to be playing your ass off. Your team has to be winning, and you have to have like a PER that's fucking ridiculous. Now, I don't know where Luka Doncic ranks PER-wise this year. I do know he's averaging like 4 turnovers a game. So, you know, I do know his percentages are not crazy, but it's just the idea, like, you know, what I'm trying to figure out what the requirements are to win league MVP, because we have made exceptions in the past, and this is one of those situations where I'm like, maybe we should be making an exception for Luka Doncic, at least this year, but only because of all the injuries that his team has had, you know. But at the same time, it's like his team is the 8th seed, so like I understand why he's not getting that type of love. But the thing is, if the Dallas Mavericks were like a top 3 seed in the West, or even a top 5 seed, I think people would be having this conversation a whole lot more. I think if the Mavericks, you know, even in the last 16, you know, like last 11 or 12 games that are left here, if the Mavericks go on a fucking tear and end up in the, you know, top 5, top 3. Actually, I don't think they're going to end up in the top 3. The top 3 seems pretty solidified. But if he can get his team into the top 5 in the West, I feel like that will be a bigger, like just a more of a conversation than it is now. Going to be very hard to do because you would have to have like at least, you know, 2 or 3 teams ahead of you go on fucking losing streaks, which I don't think is going to happen. But you know, it's something to think about. So anyway, tell me what you guys think about this down below in the comment section below. Like helps me out. Subscribe if you guys want to see more. I'm the Fast Break Report, and I'm out of this motherfucker. Peace, guys.